What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here on the snowy, cold-ass day with my co-host.
It's your boy Mod. What's good, Jay?
Man, just trying to stay warm, dude. It's cold as shit today, buddy. It's in the singles.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate cold winter, man. I don't play in it.
You know, I take those cold showers. I actually have a ice bath that I got for Christmas that I said that I had, but I haven't set it up yet because I have no where to really set it up in the house. So the cold doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but like when it's in the singles or negatives, that is just too damn cold, man. I can deal with like a 30 degrees. I'm cool with that. 40 degrees. Yeah, I'd rather have it be 60 or 70, right? But, man, when you're talking them singles and shit's just freezing on your nose as soon as you walk outside, I'm good on that.
Yeah, I'd tell my kid, like, it's fun to play out in the snow on recess. I get it, but this isn't like the 30-degree fun snowman building snow play. This is like as soon as you go outside, the air bites your face, and you need to have like a scarf and hat and gloves on. You know, she's trying to go to school without even the gloves. I was like,
Yeah, not happening.
Your hands are going to fall off.
Yeah,
so
you're going to be in lots of pain.
Yeah,
so
I don't like the cold any more than you, sir.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to talk about a topic that may be a little controversial on our extreme metal podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Because, you know, we've covered death metal, we've covered black metal, so we've gone through some genres for those that maybe don't really know about those genres. We talked about some 2000s metal with Luke, which that episode isn't out yet, so I'm not sure if this one will come out before that, but it'll be around the same time. Kind of goes hand in hand with that, with some of the things that we're talking about, and we talked about on one of the previous podcasts as well. But today we're actually going to talk about new metal. So
N-U metal.
Yeah, so you can shut this off right now if you don't want to hear about it. It's totally fine. But I will say this. As an extreme metal guy that grew up on the death metal that we've talked about, we've told our stories many times on this podcast and some of the different things that shaped us, the Metal Maniacs magazine, so on and so forth. New metal was still an integral part of my development into heavy metal because it was something that came through and really changed the whole landscape, like grunge did with metal, or like hair metal, basically. Like grunge in the mainstream basically replaced hair metal, whereas new metal almost killed heavy metal for the most part, like true thrash metal, death metal, stuff like that. And we've talked about that before as well, them dire years with all them bands trying to make music that catered to this audience because this was the thing that was coming up, right?
Yeah, a lot of our favorites kind of had to steer into the alternative scene to stay relevant. They had to start stylizing their music after, Seattle sounds, grunge rock bands. And that opened up a whole window for something new to fill the void because the thrash bands were now starting to sound like rock. And we had to wait to see what was going to happen. Now, I feel like a lot of our heroes, the guys, the bands that we looked up to, they were kind of letting us down. We wanted heavier from them, and we weren't, they were just getting older, and their stuff wasn't sounding as good going forward. So when you hit mid-90s, and then this new metal thing is happening, it was captivating, it was interesting, it was refreshing, it was new. No pun intended.
N-E-W, not N-U.
I was into it even though because it was totally different. It was like, oh, this doesn't sound anything like Slayer, but it still has that attitude, and that's what I was looking for.
Still heavy.
Yeah, and I appreciated it even though they stripped a lot of things away from the music that I was used to. I thought it was needed in order to bring in fans and give heavy metal like a breath, a resurgence, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think new metal, we're going to throw some flowers on it today. It is experiencing a bit of a resurgence right now, in my opinion, for the better. I think I'm very interested in what we're going to see with modern new metal, but it deserves to be discussed. And I think there's a lot of good things that happened. And I'm sure that, and I read, what you sent me. There's a lot of bands in here. The names, they kind of make me cringe. And I'm like, oh God, people are going to think I like this because I'm talking about it. But it just kind of came with the territory.
Yeah.
There was like good parts of new metal. And then there were the more popular parts of new metal that really catered to radio-friendly audiences and things that you and I probably not really big on. But nonetheless, it was out there for people to appreciate heavy music, to discover heavy music and heavier music beyond that if they were so inclined. So we'll spend some time going back to how nu metal came into the picture.
And there were some interesting bands that were considered nu metal compared to some other bands that were considered nu metal. So it was kind of like this where we just lumped in some things that weren't necessarily heavy metal, but what was it? I know we'll talk about the influence in the actual styles and genres, but for me, as always being a hip hop fan from early age, NWA and Anthrax were two of my first tapes. Like
Right.
literally the same day I got those two tapes. You know
Right.
what I mean? That was my flavor, and it's kind of always been that way.
Right.
Whereas I've always been more the metalhead because I played the guitar, and played in the bands, and that's helped grow that. But it kind of bridged that gap where we're bringing in some of this funk and some of this hip hop. So let's just get into it, and then we'll just kind of stop and talk about it as it go. Like we got some facts here. Like you said, some of these bands will be kind of cringeworthy, even to me. But I will say there was a lot of nu metal that I fucked with hard and really liked it. And I still like it to this day. I'll still put on the early Korn.
Yeah.
And I think it's badass. Even the new Korn, like the newest Korn, is pretty heavy and pretty sweet. So it's like...
And I think, to our own point of accepting nu metal, like it affected how we stylized our own songwriting. Like we kind of stopped pursuing the Tampa Bay death metal sound in favor of saying like, okay, all that's been done before. There's this whole new wave of exciting music coming through. And granted, we're impressionable young teens at the time. So we were going to take and we were taking and throwing in that nu metal vibe with that death metal vibe, giving it some more groove and a little bit more flavor to it. So I think it was important at the time to help steer things in a direction that was needed for everybody's sake, fans of metal and fans of music and musicians themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're beep beeping. So, all right, nu metal, often stylized as nu metal. So what is the little two dots? I'm sure you would. Do you know what those are called?
The two dots? Know what they're called.
I was hoping that you would, because
I should know.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. So the NU metal, that's nu metal with the two dots.
Yeah.
Stands as a distinctive subgenre within alternative metal, weaving together the robust elements of heavy metal and diverse tapestry of musical genres, including hip-hop, alternative rock, funk, industrial, and grunge. Going on to what I was saying, where it does encompass a lot. It was just not death metal and just not thrash metal.
Right.
The embryonic stages of nu metal can be traced back to the late 1980s and early 1990s, marked by the influential contributions of bands like Pantera, Helmet, and Faith No More. These pioneers, with their unique fusion of groove metal and alternative metal styles, laid the groundwork for burgeoning nu metal movement. Korn, often regarded as the trailblazer, spearheaded the genre's evolution in the mid-1990s, 1994 to be more precise. So, before we even go any further, Anthrax was, I believe in this, it says something about Anthrax, but they started it all, I want to say. Putting the rap and the metal together, you could go as far back as like Run DMC and Aerosmith. They had that crossover that kind of helped meld the genres, but that didn't spawn a whole genre from that. Neither did the Anthrax necessarily, right?
Right. I'd say I'm 100%.
But you had bands like Biohazard.
Yep, I'm in 100% agreement with you. The whole rap metal thing didn't come together as a band until some years after Anthrax, and to the Aerosmith Run DMC thing, that's cool, but that was kind of more like a blend of hip hop and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And now we're not talking about hip hop and rock and roll.
Yeah.
More or less, whatever. In nu metal, it's more rap and metal.
Yes.
That's ergo the title metal, nu metal.
Yep.
So there was more like a hardcore rap sort of a vibe than just Run DMC's hip hop. It wasn't as casual or laid back or as family friendly, if you will.
Right.
Bring the Noise was just exactly that. It was kind of noisy and intense,
aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
In people's faces.
Yep.
And that's where nu metal kind of comes onto the scene after that.
So the late 1990s witnessed the zenith of nu metal's popularity, as bands such as Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot released chart-topping albums, amassing millions of enthusiastic fans. The genre's ascendancy extended into the early 2000s, with multi-platinum successes from bands like Papa Roach, Stained, and P.O.D. Notably, Linkin Park's diamond-selling opus, Hybrid Theory, claimed the title of the best-selling rock album of the 21st century, underscoring nu metal's cultural impact. However, as the mid-2000s unfolded, nu metal encountered a decline precipitated by an oversaturation of bands and lackluster performance on high-profile releases. The downturn led to the emergence of metalcore, insert Slipknot, and many nu metal outfits disbanded or embraced new musical directions. The 2010s witnessed a resurgence of nu metal, marked by a generation of bands blending the genre with other styles such as metalcore and deathcore. Acts like Mice of Men, Emure Issues, My Ticket Home, and Bring Me the Horizon seamlessly incorporated nu metal into their sonic repertoire. Concurrently, artists outside the traditional metal sphere, including Grimes, Poppy, and Rina Sawamama, incorporating nu metal sounds into electronic pop, signaling a broader culture interest in the genre. In the early 2020s, nu metal's allure continued to captivate audiences, reaffirming its enduring impact on the musical landscape. So with that being said, there was an order of what happened from the birth to the decline. We'll get more into that. But now it just seems like everything's mixed with everything.
Yeah.
It's very hard now to say if something's metalcore,
Yeah.
if something's deathcore.
Yeah.
There are outliers that are specific to that, or the guys that really started it. So deathcore, you're talking about Job for a Cowboy. They sound more like a progressive metal band.
Yep.
You know, so not only do bands evolve, these kind of genres evolve. You know, we talked about that with black metal, death metal, black metal from the Norwegian Bathory and the early scenes of Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Sound way different than your Black Parades and your newer Dark Funeral productions. And, you know, so it's just everything's an evolution. And now it's like, you know, we talked about that band Vexed.
Yeah.
You said it was kind of nu metal. That was one of the things we even talked about on the show that almost turned me off to it because I was like, nu metal, is this girl rapping?
Right.
But I just see where it has still some influence on that aggressive and heaviness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's still relevant. I
Yeah.
think it had to take a time out, and as we've already stated, there was a massive oversaturation to the point where it like we begged for it to go away. It was
Yeah.
like, thanks and so long for the fish, but I cannot with some of this nu metal that was coming out at the tail end of its height there, and it did go away and but it welcomed some other things because it was able to carry the flag for metal in the mainstream culture. And not that metal really needs that, but I think that you don't want to make it so hard for metal to exist that you're fighting with venues to get bands in there. You got to have metal in the mainstream in some capacity so that people will at least look upon it with some sort of relevance and get the bands that you want to see in the venues. So nu metal kind of did that for us. You know, it did keep metal alive in ways. Nu metal bands were headlining old school thrash bands.
yeah,
You know,
sure.
so you'd get not Metallica though, but you'd get Anthrax opening for Slipknot,
Yeah.
or you'd get Megadeth opening for, you know, like a Five Finger Death Punch, a newer
Yeah.
band that kind of spawned because of what, you know, nu metal did. So nu metal definitely has its place, and we're here to throw flowers on it, and we'll take our jabs at it too where needed.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure we'll definitely do that. So nu metal at its core intertwines the sonic DNA of heavy metal and a eclectic mix of genres such as hip hop, alternative rock, grunge, and funk. Within this fusion, elements from heavy metal subgenres like rap, metal, groove metal, and funk metal seamlessly coexist. Noteworthy bands like Static X and Dope even infuse industrial metal elements into their nu metal concoctions. In a departure from the conventional heavy metal structures, nu metal embraces a pop-inspired framework of verses, choruses, and bridges, diverging from the traditional heavy metal penchant for intricate guitar solos. Also, one thing to note, especially starting with Korn and Deftones, I have this as a note. Dynamics were completely different. So you got thrash songs, and we're thrashing for 5 minutes.
Right.
We're just blasting at you. Death metal songs.
Right.
We might go into some intricate solo sections or some melodic passages, but it's really from front to back. With nu metal, I've noticed, so the dynamics, we went into these softer verses,
Mhm.
just the bass and the drums.
Mhm.
And then we get real big on the choruses and aggressive, or we
Mhm.
might come in with an aggressive intro and then it dies down to
Right.
just bass and drums, and especially with Korn, some little winky on
Yeah.
the guitar. It was like,
Noodling.
it
Yep.
was just noises,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
So that's kind of where the hip hop influence, and you kind of really let that vocal stick over that rhythmic section of the verse.
Absolutely.
And then we all come back together in the chorus.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and they stuck to, like you said, formulaic songwriting approaches. So it was heavy music, but it was in a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro type format. And people, it was radio friendly, and
Yep.
people could get into that very easily. Songs would stick in your head, so they did a lot for metal in that capacity as well.
So instrumentally, nu metal thrives on syncopation, revolving around guitar riffs heavily influenced by the groove metal aesthetic. The genre marks a departure from guitar solos, a characteristic underscored by Corey Grau of Revolver, who remarked that nu metal, in simplifying riffs, essentially drove a stake through the heart of the guitar solo. Unlike other heavy metal subgenres, nu metal pivots towards an emphasis on rhythm over complexity or mood. With occasional inclusion of distinctive wah pedals, intriguingly, nu metal can also introduce a DJ presence, infusing the genre with supplementary instrumentation such as sampling, turntable scratching, and electric background elements. So we've seen a lot of that. Limp Bizkit made the DJ coming in popular. Korn didn't necessarily have the DJ, but that's kind of what I was talking about with those weird guitar sounds and stuff. So it almost sounded like a sample and not necessarily. It was a texture, more or less.
Yeah. They weren't doing anything extravagant from a musician standpoint. They were just finding some really weird notes to hit and using a lot of effects and layers to make those notes sound even more different than anything you've heard before. And it goes to like that hip hop element where they were just trying to make sounds and not necessarily music. It's all music.
Yeah.
But now we're just trying to make the music sound different. So
it wasn't just the riff blasting all the way through, like all the notes. Just
and this was a hard thing for us and a lot of fans to accept. And like, where's the riff? Where's the melody? Where's the lick? And you had to accept that you're just getting a couple of bendies and a couple of squirrely notes, that it wasn't like a beautiful melody, but it was kind of what the song needed nonetheless.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine listening to Korn and then hearing like a melodic guitar passage. It doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm. And they had a way about them to make like the simplest riffs still sound cool and heavy.
Yeah.
Which basically led to deathcore through Slipknot, but we'll get to that. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. But when I say Slipknot in these early days, they had some nu metal elements, but I don't. They are nu metal, but like a small percentage, enough to capture the nu metal audience, and then we'll get into it. But like with Slipknot, I use them very sparingly when I say nu metal and Slipknot.
Yeah, they also were kind of the capital of nu metal. They were like the peak of nu metal, and then they moved forward. In my opinion, it's kind of like the final stamp on death metal was Slipknot, or not death metal, excuse me, on nu metal was like Slipknot, and then they took and went from there. They were all of the best elements of nu metal and bringing it back to heavy thrash, deathcore, metalcore styling. Mm-hmm. So that's why we constantly go back to that 1999 Slipknot album and give it praise.
So the rhythmic nature of nu metal extends to its bass and drum elements, drawing inspiration from funk and hip-hop, respectively. In stark contrast to prevalent heavy metal techniques, blast beats and double bass drumming, typical in subgenres like black metal and death metal, are conspicuously rare in the nu metal landscape. Nu metal aligns with its heavy metal brethren through common time, distorted guitars, power chords, and note structures hinging on Dorian, Aeolian, and Phrygian modes. The genre embraces a sonic landscape that is frequently intensified through the use of 7-string guitars tuned to lower frequencies, yielding a weightier resonance. I have here as a note the rise of the 7-string.
Yep.
Because now in metal, everybody's playing a damn 7-string, but you didn't really see it until Korn started doing it.
Yeah.
It was very rare, almost unheard of in anything we've ever listened to. They're like, oh, that's a 7-string.
Right.
Nah.
Right.
Till Korn started doing that. And then we get 8 strings and 9 strings, and these assholes are doing all this stuff now. I don't know what's going on with that. But
I mean,
if you do it, cool, whatever. But
I mean, you would think that 7 strings would have been more commonplace, because even before the nu metal thing, you had Carcass in like B tuning, right? So that's a low tuning.
Yeah,
you had like Bolt Thrower in like G sharp. There were some low tunings out there, and I'm surprised 7 strings weren't used more, but they definitely epitomized the use of such an instrument, even if they weren't like virtuosos. The only person I can think of, maybe Steve Vai,
yeah, he may have had one, but he played it completely different than anybody you could, he used every note.
Yeah. So and eventually Nevermore came into the picture using 7 strings, but again, that was a different use of the 7 string. When we think of 7 string guitar usage, we are specifically thinking of how it was used in nu metal and then how it was adapted going forward, not people playing it like a 6. Like Jeff Loomis played it like a 6 string.
Just use that extra low.
Yeah, just dropping the tuning. These guys were using it as a way of being original, basically.
So the bass guitar, often a 5-string or 6-string instrument, leans into the funk-inspired elements. Obviously, you'd have to have that extra string as well because of these low tunings and 7 strings in order to hold down that register, and make it actually sound audible.
Yeah.
Not so low that it's just taking up muddy frequencies and shit, So vocally, nu metal embraces a diverse spectrum, incorporating singing, rapping, screaming, and growling. Vocal styles often take a rhythmic cue from hip-hop, contributing to the genre's dynamic sound. While some bands, like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park, infuse rap into their music, others, such as Godsmack and Staind, explore alternative vocal expressions. Nu metal frequently blurs genre boundaries by collaborating with hip-hop artists. Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, and Kid Rock have notably joined forces with hip-hop luminaries, breaking down artificial barriers between urban music and rock. Trevor Baker of The Guardian emphasizes the pioneering role of bands like Linkin Park and Korn in the dismantling of these boundaries. I have a note there, the Anthrax, Run DMC, Aerosmith thing, they were doing it along the way. There was times when it happened before, when we mixed the rap and metal was Anthrax, but Run DMC, Aerosmith, rock, and hip-hop, but that's kind of the shit that was happening at that time was...
Right.
Obviously there was heavier stuff during that time, but Anthrax, I'm the Man is that EP. That's when Bring the Noise was on there, right?
Bring the Noise is actually a few years later. That was on the Attack of the Killer Bees. That was 1991.
But there were some elements on I'm the Man that was almost hip-hoppy, right?
Yeah, that track itself.
Yeah.
Very, very rap-inspired, yeah.
Yeah, so like I would almost say that they could be the originators of nu metal.
Yeah, I mean...
In a roundabout way. That wasn't their whole bread and butter.
Right, no, yeah.
But they did incorporate some of those elements, right?
So they did a thing, Anthrax...
I have that right down there.
Anthrax and Public Enemy did Bring the Noise, and Aerosmith and Run DMC did Walk This Way. And those kind of come off as gimmicky. Finally, people along the way said, I don't want to do this as a gimmick. I want to make my whole sound this permanently.
Yeah.
Ergo, the rap metal thing, the rap rock thing picks up and takes off from there.
Also, 94, you're talking about the rise of Snoop Dogg. Yep. Like a few years before that, Dr. Dre, Eminem were starting to get into, like, that was more like probably, 99, 97, something like that.
Sure.
But, like, hip-hop was so big at this time in rap. So it was like, what could metal do to take some of their audience and bring it in, kind of like you said when we were prefacing this whole thing.
And a lot of people in metal, a lot of artists, like Scott Ian is a big one on the record, is saying, I'm just a huge fan of hip-hop and rap. And I think a lot of people just wanted to express that in their band. They wanted to say, okay, I want to do rap, even though I'm a metal band. Nobody's going to tell me I can't. So you started to see a lot more, comfortability from artists saying, yeah, we're going to mix this in with our style now. And ultimately that just gave way to people saying, we're not going to do this as like one track. We're doing it permanently.
And what is all music? Rhythm, right? It's all about the rhythm.
Yeah.
So hip-hop's always got an awesome rhythm and an awesome beat, like you can bob your head to or bang your head to or whatever it may be. So recognizing in metal that those rhythms also could be used is definitely beneficial to be able to pick and choose what you want, what kind of rhythms you want to put in your, whether it be vocal patterns or even guitar patterns, you know? So
I think a lot of fans just found comfort in beats that they could identify with and move to. And hip hop did a lot for fans of music in that way. You could get up and dance. It was very simple. And incorporating those simpler elements into songwriting made nu metal a thing. I think people really appreciated being able to understand things, moving forward from the old hair bands. And you had like the alternative grunge metal thing kind of died right off in 94, right? Obvious. There was an obvious event there where really like overnight, Seattle's music was kind of out the window. And we got into rap rap was really coming up in the 90s to the point where it is now, where it's like the most popular music in ways. But at that time, we were done with hair metal. We were done with, grunge rock, and it was like rap. And a lot of metalheads were ready to get back into the mainstream and get their slice of the pie back. And that's where you got the new metal alignment and a change in a lot of those styles from the thrash metal and the hair metal into the new metal category.
So lyrically, new metal often navigates themes of anger, nihilism, pain, angst, bullying, emotional struggles, abandonment, betrayal, and personal alienation, reminiscent of the grunge era. But some tracks delve into sex, drugs, parties, women, violence, and relationships as exemplified by Dope. In contrast, bands like Deftones, once associated with new metal, introduce complexity and allusions in their lyrics, inviting diverse interpretations. The lyrics, typically direct and intense, align with the genre's aggressive sonic palette. However, exceptions exist, with bands like POD incorporating positive themes and promise and hope. So with that being said, I think that's one thing that always spoke to me, because we were young teens at the time. So that angst, that bullying, that aggressiveness of the lyrics really captivated, especially like in Korn and stuff.
Yeah.
That was something that captivated me into it, is the power of the lyric. It wasn't the power of the guitar solo.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily the power of the riff, although, like you said, it was something we could mosh to, groove to, jump up and down to. But what they were actually saying almost seemed important and more relevant and personal than a pull the plug by Death, or like
a War Ensemble by Slayer.
Exactly. Like we get it, we know what it's there for, but it's not that personal.
Yeah.
Whereas what Jonathan Davis was singing about, seemed way more personal.
Yeah, it seemed like he was singing it to me and for me and about my own experiences in a way. So definitely people could relate to it now on a more personal level, which I think was a big appeal to the genre, in addition to beats that people could understand.
So thrash metal band Anthrax exerted a profound influence on the emergence of nu metal, fusing hip-hop and rap with the intensity of heavy metal in their 1987 EP, I'm the Man. This groundbreaking fusion laid the foundation of the development of nu metal. Notably, nu metal bands drew inspiration from heavy metal pioneers like Pantera, with Korn's lead vocalist Jonathan Davis attributing the existence of Korn to the influence of Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell, stating, quote, "If there was no Dimebag Darrell, there would be no Korn," unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I love that quote. That's profound to me. I was reading it earlier before I got here, and I thought that's an important quote to highlight for a moment, because for me, it says this. Two guys, Monkey, Brian Welch, and the rest of the band, they all pick up their instruments because of Dimebag Darrell, right? And along the way, and probably early on, they realized, we're not going to be Dimebag. Like, and you can listen to it, and those guys didn't have a chance. But here's the important part. They didn't put the instruments down as soon as they realized they weren't going to be Dime. They said, hey, thanks, Dime, for the influence and the inspiration. Now we're going to take and run with it, and we're going to do our own thing. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people, they want to pick up their art or the thing that they want to do and be immediately good at it. We just had Jeff sit next to us and say, don't worry about all that. Don't worry about the gear. Just go out there and fail and fall flat on your face. Pick yourself back up and learn from it. And I think that's kind of what this line says to me. Like, yeah, sure, Korn is saying that there would be no Korn without Dimebag. I take from it, like, whatever your heroes are, whatever you're doing, try not to measure yourself against them. Just be inspired by them and stay with it and keep going. Because thank God we didn't get, like, a watered-down Pantera. Like, who needs a watered-down Pantera?
Right.
I'm so
with
much...
some rap.
Yeah, I'm so much more grateful for what Korn did, just saying, like, we're influenced by him, but we're not trying to replicate it. And I think that's a really important distinction to be made. Like, be influenced and inspired by something, and then go and make it your own. Go do your own thing. These kids went out and got some 7-string guitars and started rapping. Sounds nothing like Pantera, and we're all better for it, in my opinion. Maybe not everybody's a Korn fan. I'm a Korn fan. I grew up with it. I can't get away from it. I'm not their biggest fan, and I don't have all their albums, but they've got a lot of work that I do appreciate.
So speaking of Korn, which Korn had some rhythmic, weird vocal stuff, but rap, they didn't necessarily ever rap like Limp Bizkit did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why nu metal's such a weird genre, because there were so many bands lumped into this thing, but they all kind of stood on their own and had their own own thing. Because like Linkin Park, Nu metal, yes. Rap, yes. Korn, not really rap, but a lot of funk and hip hop influence in their songs with the drums and everything.
Yeah.
So Joel McKeever recognized Korn. I think that's his name. That's a weird name.
Joel McIver?
McIver? I don't know if that's supposed to be an I or what. But anyway, he recognized Korn as the trailblazing force behind nu metal genre, citing their 1993 demo, Niedermayer's Mind, as the catalyst. Korn was also credited with igniting the new wave of American heavy metal in the 1990s. We'll get to that in a minute. The sonic blueprint for nu metal emerged from the aggressive riffs of Korn, the rap elements of Limp Bizkit, and the melodic ballads of Staind. The term nu metal is often linked to the work of producer Ross Robinson, dubbed the godfather of nu metal, who worked with the key nu metal bands like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot. Notably, early nu metal bands like Korn and Deftones hailed from California, but the genre quickly proliferated across the United States, giving rise to bands like Limp Bizkit from Florida, Staind from Massachusetts, and of course, Slipknot from Iowa. In 1994, Korn released their self-titled debut album, widely regarded as the first nu metal album. The album marked Korn's ascent from the underground popularity, peaking at number 72 on the Billboard 200. Concurrently, Sugar Ray's 1995 debut, Lemonade and Brownies, blended funk metal and nu metal, while Deftones released Adrenaline, their debut album, in the same year. So, before we go into this next line,
sure,
we talk a little bit about. I'm not a fan of Sugar Ray. I don't give a shit about them one way or the other. Like sorry, it's just not for me. It's one of those things where it doesn't suck. It's just not for me. But Sugar Ray and Korn and Deftones is almost weird to say all in the same sentence, to be honest with me.
Yeah.
I don't,
Sugar Ray had some heavy moments, but I don't even know what to make of that band as they grew. I mean, they just went radio friendly all the way. But early on they did have some heavier moments. So 10 Seconds Down was a pretty fun song for me to discover. So that one was heavy. I was grossly disappointed in receiving that element through Columbia House in the mail and finding that the only thing cool about it was the cover art and the one song on it, and other than that, you could straight throw that thing in the garbage.
Not even worth keeping for the one song. I'll hear that around the way if I need to sometime.
Yeah, it'll come back to me.
So Sepultura's 1996 album Roots introduced nu metal elements that influenced the genre, drawing inspiration from Korn's debut, Korn's 1996
album?
Period. Yeah. So Korn's 1996 album, Life is Peachy, further fueled nu metal's rise, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard 200. The genre gained additional exposure through MTV and Ozzy Osbourne's Ozfest. Instrumental in propelling bands like Limp Bizkit to prominence in 1998, Deftones' 1997 release, Around the Fur, reached number 29 on the Billboard 200.
Yeah, so just an impact immediately out of the gates, right?
Yeah, so I read through this multiple times, proofreading it, rewriting things, making sure all this stuff was right. But just to touch a little bit on this 1996 album Roots. So you got these bands changing their styles along the way.
Right.
Is it because of nu metal? Is it because they were sick of doing thrash metal? Because KSID and Roots is 2 completely different albums, right?
Yes.
KSID is closer to Arise.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen to Arise and Roots, it's not even the same band almost, right?
No.
But then you got Diablo Some Music in here, Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that's their nu metal record. You can go back and listen to our Slayer episodes. Please do. We put a lot of work into that.
Yeah.
But we talked about that. That's nu metal influence. Down-tuned, 7-string guitars, bucka, bucka, bucka on the top string, whatever that is, Not South of Heaven.
Right.
Not Show No Mercy.
Right.
And I get it. We all want to change. We all want to grow with our music. But is this because of Korn?
Right.
Whether you can talk shit about Korn all you want if you're a heavy metal band or a thrash metal band, which some of them did, and we'll get into that a little bit. But you changed your style because that was what was happening, right?
Right. And I wonder how much of that is like an external influence on the band. Like you've got your record label just breathing down your neck saying like, hey, look, this is what's selling. Korn is selling. Deftones is selling. Seasons in the Abyss is 4 years old, 5 years old now. Divine Intervention, was great. Should have been like the biggest Slayer album ever, in my opinion. But to go from Divine Intervention to Diablo Some Musica, it's not. It doesn't make sense unless you start throwing in new metal.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to go from something so heavy and thrash and intense as Divine Intervention to something that just grooved and was stripped down and, just was way more simplified compared to their previous works. And they were going for that attitude that new metal brought. It was hard for a lot of thrash metal fans to palate that. And a lot of thrash metal fans absolutely hate new metal.
Yep.
And they feel like it kind of ruined some of their favorite bands. Yeah. And I think some of their favorite bands just did what it took to survive. I wouldn't say that Anthrax necessarily went new metal, even if they had a hand in, creating that genre. Yeah. But albums like, Stomp 442 and Volume 8, they were not good, in my opinion. They were not great Anthrax albums.
They were almost more alternative,
exactly.
Though, right?
Yeah. They weren't new metal, but they were more like, if anything, they leaned closer to like that Deftones sound where it was just kind of like a more rock sound, more hard rock than anything they had done before. So there was a huge cultural impact on all metal bands around the mid-90s because of new metal. And I think Sepultura's Roots album is probably one of the first albums that really shows you that. In my opinion, that was one where a band used to sound like thrash metal, and then they came out and they were totally different. And Slayer was another one, in my opinion, that kind of took and jumped on that new metal train. And if they liked it, that's good for them. That worked for them and kept them going. For me, I was kind of lost with both of those bands on those respective albums.
For me, I loved Roots.
Okay.
I thought Roots was great. I still like it. I actually want to go back and listen to it now. Diablos, I didn't care for it as much.
Right.
And I don't know if that's because, and I was never a super, if you listen to the Slayer episode that we did, both of those, it wasn't like my favorite band. I liked them. I thought they were cool. I collected their stuff. I thought their imagery and what they stood for was awesome. But I just didn't really care for Diablos that much.
Right.
Yeah, I was hoping more of, because Undisputed Attitude came out before that, right?
Correct.
So I was hoping more of some Gemini shit.
Yes.
I wanted something like that.
Yeah, I love that song.
I got Diablo some music.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't see it coming. Same.
Yeah.
I wanted Divine Intervention Part 2.
Yeah.
Heavier, faster.
3, 4, and 5 too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Give me all of that all day. So, again, there were some people who probably absolutely loved that album, and you get a group of kids that were 3-4 years younger than us at that time. They probably loved it. They probably just absolutely made Slayer fans hand over fist with that.
And that's totally cool. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to get into metal, whatever door you have to go down or corridor you have to travel down, do it. I think that's awesome. So new metal saw a surge in popularity in 1997. So now we're 3 years from the Korn's 1994 debut, marked by the debut albums of Sevendust, Cold Chamber, Limp Bizkit, and Papa Roach. So before we even get into this, I love me some Sevendust.
Absolutely.
Cold Chamber, I never really cared for, but for some reason, I always kind of liked it because you liked it. We always watched that damn Ozfest video over and over and over, that Loco song. I've seen that fucking thing about 200 times. We watched that at least. And it had some other cool shit on there, like Earth Crisis, and what else did it have on there? I just vividly remember Loco so many times.
Well, it's one of the earlier. I think it was the first song on there. Is why you had to go through that song to get through to the rest of the good ones too.
Yeah, and we weren't fast forwarding to that shit either because it was a VHS.
Again, I was a Cold Chamber fan for a hot minute when this thing was new because it was refreshing. It was different. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I own a bunch of Cold Chamber. In fact, I own 0 Cold Chamber albums. I just remember that at the time it was new and cool and fun and different. And I took a lot of verbal abuse from people for liking this band. People that were Slayer fans, people that were Megadeth fans. They're like, "You like this stuff? It's this, that, and the other." And they would just trash on it. And I would just be like, "I don't know what to tell you. I guess I didn't ask you first if I should like it."
Yeah, you like what you like, man.
Yeah,
that's
so
what it is, So
I messed with it a little bit. It was fun.
I thought they were great when we seen. I think we've seen them a few times because they were grinding. They were out there grinding. They played with They opened for Pantera once or twice. I think when I seen them,
we saw them with Megadeth at the Kalamazoo State Theater.
Yep. So I know
Cryptic
I've seen
Writings
them a few
Tour.
times.
Yep.
Yeah. Cryptic Writings Tour, and then you got Cold Chamber opening.
Yeah, and also it was Life of Agony with Whitfield Crane as the vocalist from.
Yeah, that wasn't very memorable, but
it was interesting.
Ugly Kid Joe?
Whitfield Crane,
right?
Yeah, he was the Life of Agony vocalist for a hot minute.
Okay, yeah. So Limp Bizkit's $3 bill, y'all, achieved platinum status in 1999. Cold Chamber's self-titled debut went gold in 1999, Sugar Ray's 1997 album Floored achieved 2 times platinum status in 1998, despite only one reggae-oriented track. Fly finding chart success. The turning point for the new metal came on August 18th, 1998, held as the biggest day in new metal history with the release of Korn's Follow the Leader. Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause and Orgy's Candy Ass. Never really got into those guys, so I don't know too much about them. I think just the name turned me off. I thought they were kind of more, weren't they kind of, they were like new metal, but a little industrial a little bit too.
Yeah, just kind of electronic. Industrial almost would imply like a sense of a Fear Factory type, right? Or a Nine Inch Nails type.
Yeah.
But to
Not
me,
that
it was,
cool.
it was just more like electronic infused in just a really, really simple format, especially with the drumming. It was just in the pocket, but not flashy enough to even interest most people. So I couldn't really get into Orgy either. I know they had a huge hit with Blue Monday, but and again, so 1998. This is about the end of new metal for me, right? This is Korn's Follow the Leader. It might have been the biggest day in new metal history, but it was also like the end of it for me.
Yeah,
I
for
put
me
that
too.
album on, and outside of that first track, maybe the first 2 tracks, I'm lost. It's just not a great album in my opinion. Issues was way better, but at that point, I think a lot of people had already fallen off and just stopped caring about new metal and Korn altogether, even though they're obviously still here and they have a massive fan base. For me, as a dyed-in-the-wool Korn fan from day one, by the time I get to Follow the Leader, I'm kind of checked out. It had lost the magic and the allure, the darkness that was the first album.
Yeah, for sure. They were really TRL.
Yeah.
Total Request Live on MTV for you young motherfuckers that don't know. But
Yeah, they were into the pop mainstream
Yep.
aspect of their career heavily at this point, and this
making that money, so cool for you.
yeah, and still doing music that they like and approve of. But for a lot of fans like me that like them for their heavy element and aspect, that was kind of lost at that time.
Agree. And I loved the Limp Bizkit $3 bill, y'all.
Yeah.
So to me, that was the only thing I really liked from them ever.
Sure.
But that's just my opinion. So Follow the Leader topped the Billboard 200, going 5 times platinum. New metal bands, including Korn, Limp Bizkit, and POD, gained widespread visibility on MTV's Total Request Live during the late 1990s and early 2000s. The genre appealed to diverse audiences, with Limp Bizkit attracting jocks and fraternity men, while other bands resonated with mall goths and outsiders drawn to the genre's angsty lyrics. The Woodstock 1999 festival showcased various new metal acts, including Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Sevendust. Unfortunately, the event was marred by violence, including incidents during Limp Bizkit's performance. Despite controversy, Limp Bizkit's popularity and sales of Significant Other remain unaffected, reaching number 1 on Billboard 200 and eventually being certified 7 times platinum in 2001.
Crazy.
The album sold over 7 million copies in the United States.
So these terms, a few people might not be hip to these terms. So if your album is gold, you've sold 250,000 copies, 250,000 copies of an album. That doesn't really happen anymore. People don't even go gold anymore because everything's just streaming.
Yeah.
If you go platinum, you've sold 1 million copies of your album. If you go diamond, and this rarely has happened in history.
Like Eminem.
If you go diamond, you have moved 10 million units of your album. That's insanity. I can't think of a lot of bands that have done that. We've got Limp Bizkit,
Linkin Park.
Linkin Park.
Yep.
I know Creed did it with one of their albums. I mean, that's just a hard number to hit, 10 million units. And now you're probably not going to see that anymore. Maybe Taylor Swift, maybe. But nobody
some
buys
Swifties buying some shit.
Nobody buys physical music anymore, which is a shame. You should.
So in 1999, Slipknot burst onto the scene with an exceptionally heavy new metal sound, unleashing their self-titled album. The album achieved platinum status in 2000 and soared to 2 times platinum in 2005. In his review of Slipknot's self-titled masterpiece, All Rock's Rick Anderson offered a compelling perspective, proclaiming, quote, "You thought Limp Bizkit was hard? ? They're the Osmonds. These guys are something else entirely," unquote. Anderson highlighted the album's death metal influence. Slipknot's drummer, at the time, Joey Jordison, recognized for his death metal-infused drumming, acknowledged the band's musical roots in death metal, thrash, and speed metal, emphasizing their diverse influences. So, what we always say, SK, Slipknot, you know, that they had it was kind of like, so we talk about these bands that get these new metal influences, right?
Mhm.
And they're changing their sound. Well, Slipknot comes along, and they had enough new metal to get these new metal kids to start liking heavy shit again.
Yeah.
And we've went at length about that. We may touch a little bit more on that, but we've talked about that in the 2000s metal episode with Luke. Talk about it, I think, in the death metal, or no, we talk about it in when John Roan was on here. We talked about it then. So Slipknot is the resurgence. I don't give a fuck what anybody you guys say. I don't care if you like them or not. They've put out some shitty music, but they've also put out some amazing music as well.
Mhm.
You can say what you want about Corey Taylor now because he's 25 years into the game and they're so popular. Say what you want about him, but that 1999 album, not only is it one of my favorite albums, but that changed everything.
Yeah.
So thank you to Slipknot for your deathcore, because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have fucking deathcore, and I don't care what you say.
Yeah. I mean, and we needed it too. We needed it just as bad as we needed the 1994 Korn debut. We needed something heavy and with attitude and angst, and it needed to strike the right mood and the right nerve. That, you know, in 6 years removed almost, you know, 94 to 99, 5.5 years, and they dropped this thing on us, and it just knocked me off my feet. I wasn't ready. I didn't even think music was going to be this good again. I was so tired of music and having my hopes dashed just time and again by your old hero favorites, and then this new band comes along, and you know, here's this heavy album that was just everything I needed, and that took a like otherwise fledgling, you know, downturn new metal genre and picked it right back up and pushed it out in a new way, kind of pushed it out the door in a way and said, we're done here. You know, like we're kind of done with the rap rock thing that Korn brought you in 94, and now we're pushing it into this death metal, deathcore, really heavy metal. And it wasn't all just death metal, deathcore. It had like a lot of hip hop or groove influence.
Rhythm.
Rhythm influences. And just, a little bit of hip hop, just in the beats. That groove was there. And they take that groove and they build it up into that grind beat. So Slipknot did a lot of great things for metal, bringing it back.
So in the same year of 1999, Stain released their second album, Dysfunction. The track Mud Shovel from this album peaked at an impressive number 10 on the mainstream rock chart. Dysfunction earned platinum certification from RIAA in 2000 and reached 2 times platinum status in 2004. The year 2000 witnessed Limp Bizkit's monumental achievement with their third studio album, Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water. This record set a groundbreaking record for the highest Week 1 sales of a rock album, crossing the 1 million mark in the United States within its first week.
Wild.
Including an astonishing 400,000 copies on its release day.
Crazy.
This feat earned it the title of the fastest-selling rock album, breaking a 7-year world record previously held by Pearl Jam's Versus. So there you go. You got your grunge metal.
Yep.
Now we're into our new metal. So what's popular? Why we breaking records here?
Right.
Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water was later certified 6-time platinum by RIAA. The year 2000 also saw the release of successful albums from Papa Roach, which was Infest, Disturbed, The Sickness, both becoming multi-platinum hits. So just a little note on that. Stained, it's weird they were new metal because he didn't really rap.
No.
I think what made them new metal was what I alluded to before, was a lot of the soft verses. With the bass and the drums.
Yep.
And then we're getting heavier on the choruses.
Yeah.
So I think that was more of a song structure type of thing. Not a lot of guitar going on there. Still down-tuned, right?
Yep.
And
All the way
same with
down.
Disturbed, basically, too, right? I mean, Disturbed was kind of like that. It's weird that they're new metal because to me they're kind of more of a rock band, maybe with some metal influences.
Yeah.
And I do like Disturbed the Sickness. That first album was really good, and
Yep.
I do really like Stain's first album as well. So
Yeah, a lot of these bands, you know, at the end of the day, we're probably not fans as big as we were when they first came on. A lot of these bands, their first albums, they were really good by us. And we were accepting of it. I know Disturbed, man, we would listen to the Sickness in that album and Stupefy a lot back in the day. And we rolled around listening to Limp Bizkit all the time, just side by side with the Morbid Angels and the Carcasses and the Deaths. We'd put those on, and then we'd put on something else. And a lot of those bands, that was really refreshing to hear, and it did a lot for music at the time for Metalheads. Gave us a little bit of breath. Like you said, a Stained and a Disturbed, they get lumped in there because of the songwriting formula, and they did have those really low-key verses and the big choruses and something about the beat and the imagery and the bands that they hung out with and toured with. They all get lumped in together for various reasons. They don't all sound alike, and again, not every genre, every band within that genre should sound the same. You should have something of your own, and I think those bands did that.
So continuing into 2000, POD's album, The Fundamental Elements of Southtown, achieved platinum status in the United States and secured the 143rd position among the best-selling albums of the year. Nu Metal's presence expanded through the performances at Ozfest by bands like Kitty, Disturbed, Mudvayne, Linkin Park, Slipknot, Papa Roach, and others. Ozfest 2000, for instance, boasted a sold-out crowd of 19,000 attendees. That same year, nu metal bands such as Papa Roach and Limp Bizkit shared the stage with rappers Eminem and Exhibit on Eminem's Anger Management Tour, which consistently sold out. In the latter part of 2000, Linkin Park unveiled their debut album, Hybrid Theory. This release became the best-selling debut album of the 21st century, marking the pinnacle of nu metal's popularity. It also claimed the title of the best-selling album of 2001, surpassing notable releases like NSYNC Celebrity and Shaggy's Hot Shot. The album certified 12 times platinum.
Diamond.
Yep. By the RIAA, sold over 10 million copies in the United States alone. Additionally, Crazy Town's debut album, The Gift of Game, achieved platinum status in February 2001, selling at least 1.5 million copies in the United States and 2.5 million copies worldwide.
So here you have like the biggest nu metal album ever with Hybrid Theory versus, and maybe arguably one of the best in other people's opinions, versus just the worst, just the just the nail in the coffin for nu metal with Crazy Town's Gift of Game. Oh, what a shame. No gatekeeping. If you enjoy that, please hit me up in the comments and let me know how much you like yourself some Crazy Town. But man, that I gotta be real with you. When that song came out, you just felt like you never wanted to hear nu metal again. Something about it. That song comes. I hear those first two notes with that whiny little guitar.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear it in my head right now. It's just as bad as Cotton Eye Joe. Man, get out of my head.
Yeah.
I hate it so bad. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was. So this is the saturation that we're talking about, in my opinion. They might have some other cool songs that I don't know about, and I'm not trying to hate them dudes. But it wasn't a fun time for me in nu metal listening to some of the stuff that now we're, okay, we got Linkin Park, that's cool, and then things just started to kind of go downhill, and it wasn't their fault. It's just that we had peaked.
Yep, we definitely peaked. I think we peaked in 1999 there.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, at least.
Yeah.
So in 2001, Stain's Break the Cycle, which was basically their third album, but kind of their second most popular, or like second major release, because they did have that one before Dysfunction, but I'd never even heard of them before that. So to me, that's kind of their first record.
Yeah.
So Stain's Break the Cycle made a remarkable debut at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 716,000 copies in its first week of release. The album was certified 5 times platinum by RIAA, with 4.24 million copies sold in 2001 in the United States. While featuring nu metal tracks, the album also showcased Stain transitioning towards a softer sound. Slipknot continued their dominance in August 2001 with the release of Iowa, which peaked at #3 on Billboard 200 and achieved platinum status by October 2001. Critic John Mulvey hailed the album as the absolute triumph of nu metal. So, I'm going to say this right now. This is where it all comes to head, right? The 99 release from Slipknot definitely started pushing metal in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the softer bands like Stained, Crazy Town. I mean, let's face it, Linkin Park is not heavy.
No.
I don't care what you say. For the casual, they might be like, oh, he kind of screams on there. But like Linkin Park to me is not heavy.
Yeah.
It's like rock and roll. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. If you like it, cool. I never cared for it, but it just wasn't for me. But if you got Iowa coming out, now compare that to anything Linkin Park's ever put out.
Yeah.
This is way more blast beats on this. They're even more pissed than they were before because they're trying to push this even further away.
Yeah.
Was there some rhythmic choices that Corey made with his vocals that may lead to like rap-ish, nu metal-ish stuff? Yes. But there was a lot less rap than there was even on the previous record.
Right.
Or hip-hoppy type sounds,
Sure.
right? If you include what we were talking about earlier, which was the DJ elements and the layers and everything, yeah, that was still here, right? So you could still classify, if you're using those parameters, we could still classify that as nu metal.
Right.
But as far as like the in-your-face rapping and that kind of style, that it wasn't there.
So what, in my opinion, what Slipknot did is they got right in with that nu metal hand while it was hot, and they did nu metal sounding music with their personal interests, which we know Mick loves death, and they like a lot of harder stuff. And so they took that nu metal sound and they kind of pushed it back into the heavy direction, and they went even heavier, I dare say, with Iowa, even though I do prefer the first album.
Yeah, so do I.
Something about it, and a lot of it is just that magic of that discovery, But they took their sound and they pushed it heavier, whereas we'll see like a Linkin Park going forward. They're going to steer the other way. Stained, same. They steered the other way. They were like, okay, we're going to do It's Been a While and, softer sounds and radio hit songs, and that's fine. But you got to appreciate that Slipknot was like, we don't really need to do, like radio hits. Like the fans are eating it up, whatever we give them. And thankfully, there were enough maggots out there to propel Slipknot to where they are, so that Slipknot could continue to propel metal in the direction that I dare say they did.
The gimmick a little bit helped, but I don't think it was all that. There's been people that wore makeup and masks and shit before. It's not.
Well,
but 9 dudes.
I'll just say this. I will just say this. If their success only hinged on the outfits, then where are all the Mushroomhead fans?
Yeah, that's true.
Where are all the Mushroomhead hits?
Yeah.
Where's all the Mushroomhead anything?
Yeah.
They were doing it too. And listen, if any member from Mushroomhead ever hears me speaking on this about them, I love them. Those dudes have allowed me to open for them several times in various bands that I've been in, and they put on a great show. And I like their music fine. But answer me this. If it's strictly about Slipknot's costumes, then why isn't every other band in a jumpsuit and a mask as big as Slipknot?
Right.
It's about the music at the end of the day. And it's about how they appeal to fans, and it has a lot to do with personality and things. So
right place, right time also, dude.
Yeah.
Like that has everything to do with everything.
Yeah. And so I don't think Slipknot's success hinges entirely on their outfits. I think that's just a cool gimmick, as you say. Yeah. And I like the gimmick at the end of the day now, at this stage of my life. I like to see something on stage. So it's that stuff at the end of the day. People might, Sleep Token. They're just wearing, robes and masks, and they're just ripping off Slipknot. They sound nothing like them.
No.
And
they sound like nobody. That's what's so great about
exactly.
them.
And if you don't like a band because they have an appearance or an outfit, well, that's your problem.
Yeah, that's on you.
Just don't listen to them. But I think if I'm going to a concert, I want it. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want the spectacle. So there's that.
So in 2001, POD's album Satellite reached triple platinum status and secured the 6th position on the Billboard 200. Drowning Pool Sinner, released on June 5th, 2001, attained platinum status by August 23rd, 2001, and their song Bodies gained widespread recognition, reaching number 6 on the mainstream rock chart. System of a Down's Toxicity, released in the same year, ascended to number 1 on the Billboard 200 and received multi-platinum certification. The band's unique blend of nu metal with influences of Middle Eastern, Greek, Armenian, and jazz music coupled with politically charged lyrics set them apart.
So, yeah, here we're seeing something of, I would say, the saturation of the market here, but also these bands did help keep heavy music on the radio. Bodies never went anywhere. Bodies is still a huge song.
They're still playing that dumb fucking song.
Toxicity, everybody knows. Wake up, grab a brush and put it on a little makeup. Yeah. So everybody knows it, and those bands help keep heavy music relevant for us. And they had some other harder songs probably underneath all of that, but
I think I never liked the Body song because I may have said this on the show before, but it's like if everybody else likes it, I probably just want to steer clear of it.
Right.
And that's that song to me, and I never listened to another song on that album or
it
was just too mainstream for me. It was just too corny. It was too cheesy. It was just way out of my league of like what music should actually be.
They do have another good song off of that album, which is the I Don't Care About Anyone Else But Me. I just like that song. That's a good song. But it's more of a rock song. It's not a metal song.
So as nu metal entered 2003, MTV observed a decline in mainstream popularity in 2002, citing lower sales for Korn's Untouchables and Papa Roach's Love, Hate, Tragedy. Korn's Jonathan Davis attributed the decline to music piracy affecting Untouchables. MTV also noted a shift in radio play away from nu metal bands and an increased focus on other musical genres. Despite this, Korn's Untouchables achieved platinum certification in July 2002, and the single Here to Stay received substantial radio play and topped MTV's Total Request Live. Linkin Park's remix album Reanimation sold over 1 million copies in 2002, an impressive feat for a remixed album. POD's popularity extended into 2002 and 2003. Linkin Park's Meteora claimed the top spot on the Billboard 200, selling at least 810,000 copies in its first week. Meteora achieved multi-platinum certification in the United States with over 6 million copies sold. Despite the decline in nu metal's popularity, international bands like 3 Days Grace from Canada and Lost Prophets from Wales achieved success in 2003. 3 Days Grace, I Hate Everything About You, not to be confused with the Ugly Kid Joe epic masterpiece, became a hit signal in April 2003. I added that in there yesterday when I was proofreading because that's all I heard, and nothing's going to be as good as that one. And Lost Prophets, The Last Train Home, secured a place on the highest charting signal from a UK rock band late that year. So that's where it gets saturated. I was already getting out of, I wasn't even paying attention to the Linkin Parks, wasn't paying attention to Korn no more.
Right.
Slipknot got me back in my right mind and wanting to hear all the heavy shit again.
Yeah.
And bands were starting to put out heavy albums again because of that. And then we're starting to think about deathcore and all these other genres that are coming back around now.
Yeah, and thanks to a band like Slipknot, we were able to discover and, find out about a band like Mudvayne. Where there's a nu metal band that I want to speak more to instead of like the Linkin Parks or the PODs and the, what have yous, the Crazy Towns. Like Mudvayne's a band that came out of the nu metal thing for the better for all of us. Like talk about your drummer, talk about your bassist, man, talk about your vocalist. I mean, really good. And still in that nu metal vein where they weren't doing flashy guitar solos or intricate rhythms, but pushing the simplicity of that guitar work into a complex region because now it was all rhythmic based, being able to keep up with your drummer and bassist. So we still had some really good things coming after the peak of nu metal because of nu metal, because of Slipknot.
So as the new millennium unfolded, the heavy resonances of nu metal continued to echo into 2002 and 2003. However, by the close of 2003, the genre found itself on rapid descent. Despite standout releases like Linkin Park's Meteora and Lost Prophets' Start Something, nu metal's mainstream allure witnessed a significant downturn in the dawn of 2004. Limp Bizkit, once a flag bearer of the genre, released Results May Vary in 2003, a sonic departure marked by alternative rock tracks alongside their signature nu metal sound. Despite peaking at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and selling over 325,000 copies in its first week, critical reception was harsh. Blabbermouth.net reported that Results May Vary sold 1.3 million copies in the United States by 2004, a far cry from the height of Significant Other and Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water.
Yeah, to be fair, I do believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they had Wes Borland on that.
I'm not sure. I kind of, unless after $3 bill, y'all, I just didn't want it. As soon as they put out break stuff, I just didn't want any. I didn't want to hear his voice ever again after that.
Touche.
When you want to wake up and break stuff, I was just like, my fucking God, dude, we're doing this.
Yeah, no thanks. That was
I was good on that.
Yeah, it was Results May Vary was no
Wes.
No Wes.
So Korn's Take a Look in the Mirror in 2003 also experienced diminished success compared to their earlier work, selling less than the previous albums like Issues and Untouchables. Concurrently, a shift in the musical landscape saw indie and garage rock revival bands like The Strokes, The White Stripes, and Jet rise to mainstream prominence, outshining nu metal. By the mid-late 2000s, emo's popularity even surpassed that of nu metal.
Back to bleak times. Go ahead, Jay.
This era witnessed the ascent of metalcore, a fusion of extreme metal and hardcore punk with bands like Killswitch Engage, Shadows Fall, and Trivium garnering attention. Groove metal band Lamb of God also flourished in the heavy metal realm. Stephen Hill of Louder Sound termed this evolution as the metalcore revolution.
Thanks, Slipknot.
Yep, that's what that says, isn't it, Nick?
I mean, I don't care, man. We're 24 years long talking about this fucking album that Slipknot put out.
Yeah.
I mean, just if you're old enough to remember back then, you can come on the show and argue that it's not all that, and Jason and I will probably dig our heels in more because it was all that. It really meant something to metal to have that album. It really was a huge pivotal moment in metal music's history. You needed the self-titled Slipknot album to get to where we are, to just have metal stay alive and not be completely dead and forgotten. Like,
during the time we wouldn't have known. We would have known that's what was happening.
right.
But looking back on it now and seeing the bands that it spawned, like, I mean, Killswitch, one of my favorite bands.
Yep.
But this shit didn't, this hardcore, resurgent, metalcore,
Yep.
bands like, they just escaped me, but like Evergreen Terrace, Between the Buried and Me, all these bands you start seeing because of Slipknot started taking bands like Killswitch Engage on tour.
Yep.
All this shit, we wanted heavier music. So where's all this coming from? Blood
Right.
has been shed. Like all these crazy New England hardcore bands, Shadows Fall. I mean, all this stuff starting to gain a resurgence. That's when I started getting into all this.
Yep.
All because of the starting to gain popularity because people started liking really heavy shit again.
Yeah.
And of course, punk and hardcore was always there, right? Because we've talked about that. Hatebreed was coming out around this
Yep.
time. But who was on tour with Slipknot? Oh, look, it's Hatebreed.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I think, people, that you need to realize that you need to have somebody out there carrying the flag for the masses to draw in the popularity so that you can get some of those undercard bands, made known to you. You need a Slipknot on tour, a Slipknot selling 5 million albums when they do drop an album to bring out some of these bands that you've not heard of yet and discover them. That's the importance of having some metal in the mainstream music is, yeah, sure, it's going to draw in a bunch of people that aren't necessarily metalheads or, true to metal, so to speak, but having everybody go out to the show enables that band to bring out some of their friends that they want you to discover. Limp Bizkit bringing out Stained, because they're popular enough, they're going to say, hey, we want to bring you guys out, and we're going to do Outside live on stage one night in Biloxi, Mississippi, or Missouri, or what have you. And it just ignites this whole wildfire of music because Slipknot is out there supporting, giving you these bands. If we didn't have a Slipknot, we probably wouldn't have some of these awesome bands that you mentioned too. Yeah. Killswitch, Trivium, Shadows Fall. Those bands, they became popular to us because Slipknot was taking them out on the road, basically.
And they might have still been doing their thing.
Yeah.
They still could be playing the same exact music, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been so in your face and accessible if it wasn't for that door open by Slipknot pushing that new metal aside and saying, okay, heavy shit needs to come back. You know?
They did that for us in spades.
So around 2004, several new metal acts began experimenting with diverse genres to adapt to evolving trends. Linkin Park's Minutes to Midnight in 2007 marked a near-complete departure from new metal, a shift openly acknowledged by lead singer Chester Barrington, rest in peace. Bands such as Disturbed, Soulfly, Drowning Pool, and Slipknot incorporated heavier elements of groove metal, death metal, and thrash metal into their music. Simultaneously, Staind and Papa Roach explored alternative rock, departing from their new metal roots. Staind's 14 Shades of Grey in 2003 showcased a lighter sound, signaling a significant shift from their earlier new metal heavy albums.
Mm-hmm.
Papa Roach fully embraced hard rock with Getting Away with Murder in 2004, leaving the new metal genre behind. System of a Down, with albums Mesmerize and Hypnotize in 2005, adopted a more alternative metal approach compared to their previous releases. I don't know anything about that. It's not that I've never been a fan of System of a Down. I've heard the songs around the radio, thought they were cool, thought they were talented, never just spun a System of a Down record. I saw Brian's band do the covers. I thought it was all cool as shit. I thought it was awesome. Always had respect for them. Seen them a few times live. Just one of those bands that were there. They just never did anything to me. I know there was some kind of, the big I know guys that love System of a Down.
Yeah.
Just love that fucking band.
Yeah.
Not sure why. But if you like what you like, that's what we like. We like what we like. So I don't really know how that actually tracks there, I
mean, so it kind of falls in line with the whole timeline that's kind of being described here. So now we're past that 99-01 peak, and we're kind of coming down from it, and you can see bands are now departing from the core nu metal sound, and they're going off into, you know, the softer sound or a heavier sound. And for System of a Down, they kind of got lumped in with those bands, similarly to maybe like Incubus. They're lumped in there because they hung out with them, they went on tour with them. They don't necessarily sound like that true, like all the way to the core. They're not necessarily a nu metal band, but you know, they peaked with Toxicity, and then they put out a couple more albums, less popular, and I think that has to do with the whole genre entirely just kind of like people losing interest with it.
Yeah,
and also, you know, the feelings of the newness of a band like System of a Down are well worn off by this time. You know, we've been listening to Sugar since '99, and now we're all the way past Toxicity, and you know, it's just not as fun now. And they, whichever direction they decided to grow in, they still maintained huge fan following, but it just wasn't like nu metal. It was them steering into their own direction.
So in 2005, Limp Bizkit released the Unquestionable Truth Part 1 as an EP without significant promotion. Despite its lack of popularity, nu metal's pioneers announced a hiatus in 2006, with vocalist Fred Durst acknowledging their transient impact, stating, "We were a moment in time and it's over," or "We were a moment in time and it's over." That's probably what he sounded like. Throughout the mid-2010s, discussions about a nu metal revival emerged as bands fused nu metal with other genres. Despite diminished radio play and mainstream popularity, some nu metal acts recaptured attention with albums in their signature style. The emergence of nu metal, I put nu metalcore / deathcore / metalcore, saw bands like Suicide, Silence, Issues, and Of Mice and Men gaining moderate success. So we're getting into this like deathcore, emo core. There's like more going on, but it all still stems from Slipknot, Killswitch, all of these bands gaining attention. Deathcore coming into the fold with Job for a Cowboy, 7-string down 2 guitars, but we're adding grind and groove with some of these nu metal elements as well, because that's some of what deathcore is. I mean, if you ask Garza from what's his band, Suicide Silence, he would tell you the same, because he loves Korn. That's like his shit, you know. So like, but he wanted to play super heavy shit. So by the mid 2010s, a nu metal revival gained momentum with bands like Blood Youth, Cane Hill, and Islander. Nu metalcore and multiple mixing of genres like hardcore and metal rose to prominence with groups like Vane FM, Loathe, and Code Orange. Where Code Orange, I would say that Vane FM's just pissed off hardcore to me. So I didn't. That was just kind of in the writing. I don't really. That's why I kind of put more like hardcore. But I could see maybe some of those elements because they do have a lot of groove to them. According to Pop Matters writer Ethan Stewart, Code Orange's 2017 album Forever played a pivotal role in establishing nu metal core as prominent force in the contemporary metal. As the revival unfolded, unexpected sources embraced nu metal influences. Pop and R&B artists like Poppy, Grimes, and Rina Sawawama incorporating nu metal elements into their works. Poppy's fusion, dubbed Nu Poppy or Poppy Metal, received critical acclaim, earning her a Grammy nomination for Best Metal Performance. In 2020, nu metal experienced a resurgence of interest among Gen Zers. Google searches for nu metal in 2023 reached their highest point in nearly 2 decades, with bands like Deftones and Slipknot gaining newfound popularity among younger audiences through platforms like TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, here we are. It's 2023. It definitely fell off some 15 or more years ago since nu metal has really been a thing. And then, you know, like I'd say 08 was maybe like the last Mudvayne album. And yeah, then Deftones, they've continued. Nobody's calling Deftones really nu metal. Alt metal might be the phrase there. But it's fair to say that it's starting to come back, but it's going to look heavier and less like the funk rap nu metal of old, and it's going to feel more genty, I think. But I think it's still going to have the feeling of nu metal, just in those verses. I think we're still gonna see some rap, but it's just not gonna be like the funk kind of rap or that hip hop kind of rap that like Limp Bizkit might have captured or Korn captured. I think you're gonna see it more in that rapid fire metal vocalist like you see in Vexed or Archspire, where it feels a bit like a rap vocalist, but the music is going to definitely keep you in that gent metalcore, deathcore vibe for sure.
All right, so we're going to be wrapping up here in a second. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the legacy and reception of nu metal. So Despite its zenith in the late 1990s and early 2000s, nu metal faced criticism from many heavy metal aficionados. Derogatory terms like mallcore and winecore became associated with the genre. Nu metal was often deemed one of metal's regrettable forays into the mainstream, according to Gregory Heaney of AllMusic. Lucy Jones of NME went even further, dubbing nu metal as, quote, the worst genre of all time, unquote. In Metal, the Definitive Guide, Gary Sharp Young dismissed nu metal as a dumbed-down and thankfully short-lived exercise. When Machine Head transitioned to nu metal with The Burning Red, the band faced accusations of selling out. Drummer Dave McClain defended their evolution, stating, "Pissing people off isn't a bad thing. It doesn't bother us. We know we were going to piss people off with the record." Side note, nu metal, cut your hair, did all that shit. Still not a bad album, to be honest. I actually kind of like that album, to be honest.
The Burning Red,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a nu metal album at all. Now you go forward one more album to what is it, Supercharger?
Yeah,
Nu metal and throw it in the garbage.
yeah.
Supercharge that shit on fire.
So so I love the first two Machine Head. So fucking heavy, so awesome. I mean, such a great part of metal. When that came out, didn't even listen to it for the longest time. And I just remember several years later, I listened to it. And I even texted Brian. I was like, dude, why don't you tell me this was a great record? Because I just shoved it, because I was done with nu metal altogether. I didn't want to hear no more nu metal.
Sure.
All of Korn's new shit sucked.
Yep.
I never was the biggest Deftones fan, so I didn't care about White Pony. I didn't care about none of that.
Right.
Like, I do like Deftones, but it's kind of spotty for me. But I was completely done with nu metal. I just wanted the hardcore. I wanted the metalcore. I just loved all that shit. All that remains, all shall perish. All that shit was on my radar at this time.
Yeah,
so.
and I know that Machine Head, say his name for me. Their fucking singer. Why am I blanking on his name? He loves to rap. He loves rap.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like he gets into it. So I didn't feel like there was all that rap on the Burning Red. So I don't feel the new core element. I mean, it's a shift from their first two albums, right? Like it's more alternative metal sounding, but I don't feel it as nu metal. But the next album is where Rob Flynn. Thank you.
It blanked on me too.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I should know the man's name, but in the moment I'm forgetful.
Oh, I get
but
it.
like I would say the next album was kind of jumping the shark and getting into the nu metal thing a little bit late, or he just really felt the need to do a nu metal album with Supercharger. But that was the one where I was like, okay, and I'm out. So I checked out after the Burning Red there.
They've had and Machine Head was a good transition into nu metal because they've always had those kind of dynamics with some of this lighter verses. You know, they had some of the thrash metal and the heavy shit. I love me some Machine Head. Don't get me wrong, especially those first two. But they've always kind of did the little dynamics in between and the bigger choruses and the big jumps and the grooves and the breakdowns.
And
like they were very important to metal.
And I think Rob was rapping on some tracks in the early albums. Yeah, so it wasn't like Supercharged, you could see kind of coming if he wanted to do it. It lacked grit to me. It lacked teeth to be heavy enough.
So nu metal's rejection extended to some of the genre's forebears. Megadeth's Dave Mustaine claimed he would, quote, rather have his eyelids pulled out, unquote, than listen to nu metal. Gary Holt of the Exodus and Slayer expressed relief at the genre's decline. I have in parentheses and bold, but what about all the bands doing this shit? So Dave Mustaine played some bullshit for a while.
Yeah.
Whether it was nu metal or not, it wasn't nu metal, but you played some bullshit.
Yeah, I mean,
Slayer, you put out some bullshit, like some nu metal shit.
Yeah.
Like you might have liked it, but you can't say you weren't influenced and you weren't influenced or change your sound because of this genre.
Yeah, I mean, Dave would have fared better had he steered Megadeth into a nu metal. In my opinion, I'd have liked more nu metal Megadeth than Breadline and
rock
and Crush 'em and like there's just
pro wrestling Megadeth. That's what that shit was.
I mean, good
Some
for
wrestling entrance shit, dude.
I mean, I think it's like one of the most arena played songs in sporting events is Crush 'em, and it's just like, yeah, but who wants that?
Yeah,
who wants that?
Not a diehard Megadeth fan. A guy at a hockey game probably wants that because he can palate that. But we're like, where's the thrash, dog?
Yeah.
So certain musicians who influenced nu metal distanced themselves from the subgenre. Mike Patton of Faith No More and Mr. Bungle criticized nu metal, disavowing any responsibility for its influence. He would be the type of guy just to be like, I don't have anything to do with anything. I just make some crazy shit. So if you say it's because of me, that's on you. I don't know what to say. Helmet frontman Page Hamilton lamented being associated with rap metal, emphasizing the disparity between their sound and nu metal. Fair enough.
Nonetheless, Helmet can be found on the Judgment Night soundtrack doing a rap metal song. So say what you want, Page Hamilton. You were right there in the thick of it, running with everybody else, grabbing a piece for you to go. And this too, I fucking love that song.
Oh, on the Helmet or on the Judgment Night soundtrack?
Yeah, and who was it with? House of Pain?
Yep.
I mean, just the song, man. And they played it live without the rap part, but I fucking loved it. So
yeah, I did too. I like me some Helmet too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails voiced skepticism about nu metal bands, perceiving insincerity with the parody of their expressions. He characterized the genre as comical, suggesting it was a caricature of itself.
Yeah, and also Trent Reznor had an open public feud with Fred Durst at the time, so no surprise there. He's going to shit on nu metal all
That's
day.
where you get that sound bite from.
Yeah,
for sure. So nu metal's association with Tool prompted a pointed response from Maynard James Keenan, who likened it to a unlikely romantic proposition. Tim Comerford of Rage Against the Machine openly despised Limp Bizkit, labeling them as, quote, one of the dumbest bands in the history of music, unquote. Rage Against the Machine, not too far off.
Yeah, I was going to say ironic.
I mean, I get, like, they have some substance to their music, but, I mean, when you compare them side by side, it's kind of the same shit. Like, I don't know, to me.
If you take out, like, maybe the lyrical content and just say, disregard everything Zach's saying over here, disregard whatever Fred's saying, it's just words, and then you just listen to the music, instrumentals even, if you will, they're like the same band.
To me,
I mean,
one riff all the way through, you just get quiet on parts. Yeah. It's literally the same, like, 12 notes.
One band has a DJ, one band doesn't.
Yeah. One band raps more than the other, and it's the one that says they don't want to be associated with nu metal. So what the fuck are you talking about?
I just think it's funny. People are going to shit on nu metal, and that's why I thought it was even controversial or a hot take for us to do this episode, because I feel like we're big enough to not entirely shit on it, take what's good from it, mention it, highlight it, sit here and state what we don't like about it, or what was like the most mainstream aspect or elements of it, and just kind of see where music went from there.
So a little bit more here, and then we're going to wrap this beach up. So despite the criticism from some nu metal musicians defended the genre, vocalists like Corey Taylor of Slipknot and Des Fafara of Cold Chamber landed nu metal's impact on the subsequent wave of American heavy metal. Taylor asserted that nu metal wave was crucial to the genre's evolution. Thank you, Corey Taylor, for saying something that fucking matters. Yeah. Appreciate that. Notably, nu metal found renewed appreciation among Gen Z in early 2020, fueled in part by TikTok exposure of bands like Deftones and Slipknot. The genre, once maligned, began to resonate anew with a younger audience, which is cool.
Yeah, it had to kind of go away for the people that didn't like it and appreciate it, and then a new crop of music listeners had to come up and appreciate it once more.
So we'll have a couple sound bites here from a few people that were in nu metal, kind of what they talked about, and then we're going to wrap this up. So nu metal musicians too grappled with the label and sought to distance themselves from its confines. Slipknot, despite their association with nu metal, preferred to be recognized simply as metal, disassociating from the nu metal groups that followed. Jonathan Davis, vocalist of Korn, initially resisted the nu metal label, emphasizing the band's uniqueness. In 2014, he expressed frustration, stating, "I never liked the nu metal term." However, by 2019, Davis acknowledged the term more positively, claiming pride in potentially inventing a movement. Aaron Lewis of Stain vehemently rejected the nu metal label, expressing exasperation at the constant association, while on a Trump rampage. No, I'm just kidding. I added that there. Sorry, don't shut it off. Gino Marino of Deftones distanced his band from nu metal early on, predicting a separation when other nu metal bands decline. I appreciate that because Deftones always got lumped in, but to me, they're just kind of like alt rock. I don't really know. There's not. They dress like nu metalers with their Jinko clothes and their baggy shit. Like they had the style of nu metal.
Yeah.
They had the dynamics and the heavy choruses, everything that we talked about in the very beginning. So maybe that's why they're considered nu metal.
Yeah.
But rapping was one thing he never. I guess he did. Engine Number 9 was rappy.
Yeah.
But very, very elements of nu metal. But being a nu metal band, I'm not real sure.
Well, they were thick as thieves with Korn. The first album had more rappier elements, maybe even Around the Fur had some rap elements to it. I think it's just those first two albums that they get kind of lumped in with the nu metal category, but once you get to White Pony, all bets are off. They're not really new metal. They're not even really. They're like an alternative metal, but there's just so many things about them where it's like they're not that heavy.
Yeah.
But they at the same time they can hit you with some really grooving rhythms that you're like bobbing your head to, and you're like, I love it. So Deftones, I'm sure they smile when they're like even considered metal. They're like, are we metal? And they're one of the coolest bands like that because they can dodge labels and genre classifications just by virtue of doing whatever they want.
So Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda clarified that they never held the new metal flag, disassociating from the genre's associations with frat rock. Wes Borland of Limp Bizkit expressed dislike for the term new metal, puzzled by its application to despite sounding bands within the genre. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park initially disliked the new metal label, expressing disdain for the genre. However, by 2012, he accepted it, recognized the band's role in shaping new metal sound. So once they started getting recognition for it, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
that's me. I forgot. Yeah, we made that shit. We did that. We did. Yeah, But before, yeah, fuck that. We ain't part of that popular shit. You know what I mean? So, in addition to facing rejection from within, new metal grappled with skepticism from the broader heavy metal community. Many heavy metal musicians dismiss new metal as not constituting true heavy metal.
Right.
New metal musicians such as Jonathan Davis and Sully Erna of Godsmack rejected the heavy metal label. Davis saw Korn as a funk band rather than heavy metal, emphasizing their unique groovy sound. So new metal's complicated relationship with its legacy reflects the diverse perspectives within the genre and the broader music community. Despite enduring criticism, the new metal revival and its recognition among newer generations signal a nuanced reassessment of its impact and relevance. And that concludes new metal. But before we go, I want to just go through and name some bands that are new metal. We did this with the other genres. Yeah. I don't have this. So I Googled new metal, and we're just going to go through real quick.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap this up. We're about an hour 30 almost. But I'm just going to name some bands, and we might say a little something about them, and you'll see what they say. This is Google's definition.
Okay.
I don't always trust all my sources from Google. I go through a few results first. But this is what Google's telling me new metal.
Okay.
Korn.
Yeah.
Got it? Limp Bizkit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rap metal, new metal, sure.
So Slipknot
started? Yeah, I mean, they are the capital of it. They are the ultimate peak of it.
Mudvayne?
Absolutely. Just right there by Slipknot, in my opinion.
Linkin Park? Definitely.
I mean, right there with Hybrid Theory, absolutely. And even Meteora, I can take nothing away from that label. That's fair game.
Deftones?
Yeah, first two albums for sure.
POD?
Not at all.
No?
I just... No,
you don't like them at all, or you just don't think they're new metal?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really don't. They're new rock. That first song, though, I mean, Southtown, I guess, he screams on it, so it's
El Nino. Fuck, man, they had some slappers. I really like them.
For sure, that's a band.
Ooh, this don't look good for you guys. Machine Head. Jesus, this early on the list, Machine Head? What the fuck?
No, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know how to classify Machine Head other than just...
They're fucking metal.
Just a metal band.
With a few bad albums.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean... They're not new metal, though.
System of a Down?
Yeah, they get lumped in. They're more rock than anything.
Cold Chamber?
Yeah, absolutely.
Disturbed?
Again, for the first album. Yeah.
Papa Roach?
Yeah, definitely. Even though they went rock, that first album is going to go down in the annals of history as new metal.
Stained?
Again, same. First two albums.
Drowning Pool?
Yeah, for what it's worth, yeah.
10 years. Never heard of that band.
Not a metal band. They're rock through and through.
Ultra Spank?
Yeah, they were there. You know what? They had an amazing vocalist. God, he was great. Yeah, sure, why not? But they're not very popular. But they were fun.
Factory 81.
Yeah, now we're getting into some like real deep alternative. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but why not?
E-Town Concrete, definitely new metal.
Yep.
V-Shaped Mind, never heard of them.
Nope.
Non-Point.
Yeah, 100%. Great band too.
Yeah.
Still.
Mushroom Head?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, same.
Edema?
Yeah, I mean that's
never
Jonathan Davis's younger brother's band or something. But
Taproot, definitely.
Yep, 100%.
Michigander Boys.
Yeah, love them.
Flaw, definitely.
100%.
I like me some Flaw too.
Absolutely.
Spine Shank.
Yep.
Okay.
Got to see them live.
Ocean Grove.
Never heard of
them. OTEP, definitely. They're still fucking rapping for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Static X.
100%. I mean, I think that's one of the quintessential new metal bands, especially that first album. Love them or hate them.
Sepultura.
weird flex. Like they got a new album. They have one album, Roots, which falls into that category, but that's it.
Yeah, so I don't know why that. Snot, my boys.
Yeah,
Fuck. Love
yeah.
me some Snot. And I would say they're new metal. They got funk, jazz. They got a bunch of shit. So they are new metal.
Mm-hmm.
There's some rap.
Yeah, and
But-
of all bands mentioned on the episode today, there's a band I want people to go and listen to.
Yeah,
like,
that's probably one of the best ones on the list that
yeah. If you made it this,
transcend new metal.
yeah, if you've made it this far into this episode, just go listen to Snot right now. Like that's probably the best name on this. Probably the most underrated name on this whole episode.
There's one more, and I'm not sure if I'm going to see it here, and I don't see it here, so I'm just going to say it right now. That's right up there. Stuck Mojo.
Yeah, thank you.
Fuck, I love Stuck Mojo,
Man,
man. The rap stuff, they're so fucking heavy. They're so tight. I mean,
I fucking love it,
fucking
man.
Stuck Mojo.
We listened-
That's another one you all should go listen to.
Yep, for sure. That's another one that I recall listening to a lot back in the day. A lot of rap metal, just a lot of catchy hooks. I know that was one for you. That was your band for sure. And
Some
you
of their shit was super heavy, though,
Yes,
man. I
yeah.
mean, double bass, fucking
Yep.
super heavy grooves. Throw the switch. There was so much. I love me some fucking Stuck Mojo.
Yeah.
Dude. Seven Dust.
Yeah, Seven Dust is a new metal band, even if they're more rock now than anything. Those first two albums,
They're really fucking heavy too,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Their newest album's great too. The one they just put out like last year, really fucking good. So
still a relevant band doing relevant current music is Seven Dust.
since '94, it says.
Yeah. So they, again, another example of a band, one, being kind of lumped into a genre just by virtue of the fact that they're friends with the other bands and just the time of their come up and just who they're hanging out with. And some of their early work more so than their later work. So that's why Seven Dust kind of gets lumped in as new metal. They could just be a metal band the same as Machine Head, if you will.
Got Emil Bulls, never heard of it.
Hmm.
Evanescence,
I mean, again, more of a rock band.
Godsmack,
Same. More of a, I mean, early album stuff,
Yeah.
sure.
1 Minute Silence, definitely. I really liked 1 Minute Silence. They had a lot of rap shit, but definitely a cool band. Talia, ever heard of them?
No.
Never heard of them. Orgasm, never heard of them.
Nope.
Chimera, I don't know about new metal. More like metalcore to me.
Yeah, same. Not new metal.
Cane Hill,
Not familiar, but it was a popular name.
Incubus. Funky.
Yeah, I mean, so again, here's a band who's got heavy elements, funk elements. The vocals are there. Brandon can do a lot of different things from singing to rapping, if you will. Maybe even, does he ever scream? I don't know. Yeah, early stuff.
Early stuff.
Early stuff.
And once in a while, you'll catch one on a song every
Yeah.
5 songs or something. He
Yeah.
might, but
So in terms of new metal, again, getting lumped in really, but a
Yeah.
lot of Incubus fans would probably say no, they're not because of the diversity of their own body of work.
I'll say this too before we go over these last few too. I think some of this is getting popular at the same time as new metal's getting popular.
Exactly.
And if you have a few elements, you're new metal.
Yeah, so
Because you're not fucking thrash metal,
right.
so you're new metal,
Yeah,
right?
but at the same time, does Incubus sound like Korn? Not really, but they've got that bass. They got that funky bass, so
Yeah.
there's some snap on it with the funk.
Yeah, they never get that heavy as Korn's like first album. There's
Right.
nothing that Incubus has ever put out that's that heavy.
That dark or that
Yeah.
heavy, no.
And
But
they got some, and earlier works a little bit heavier shit, but it's
Yeah.
really more funky. Chevelle,
I mean, no, there's not a metal element to that band, in my opinion.
they're more like a Tool kind of
Yeah,
band to
they
me.
come
like
up in that time
progressive
frame.
rock.
Yeah,
right?
I don't.
Breaking Benjamin. What do you think about that? Your boy's on the list, Nick.
Okay. Hey, it's fair. I
Uh,
absolutely love some
uh.
Breaking Benjamin, near and dear to my heart. God, I love that band so much. Are they a new metal band? Not at all.
Okay.
Not whatsoever. No.
Yeah, I've heard enough to know that they're not new metal.
Yeah.
Kitty,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
they were there in the thick of it.
Seether,
No, they throw them the Breaking Benjamin route. They
Yeah,
are
okay.
not metal at
Primer 55.
all. 100%.
Yep. 40 Below Summer.
Oh, I missed that band.
Fucking awesome band, dude.
God, I think I'm gonna go home and listen to a couple of tracks.
40 Below Summer's had so many bangers. So
Oh.
I remember going back. This podcast is running way longer than I wanted to, but it's okay. I remember going back, dude, and pulling up some 40 Below like
Yeah.
long after the stuff I listened to and
Right.
listening to it, and I was like, this shit is still fucking awesome. Like
Yeah.
albums I didn't even know of. I was so far removed from anything new metal,
Right.
and I just went back and listened to some. I think 2005 was one of the last things they put out, but it was fucking awesome. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, wow, they still put out good shit. Because them first couple, the Last Dance or Ticket to the Last Dance or whatever, and then the morning after, them 2 albums were just fucking awesome.
Perfection. And
Yeah.
when you talk about new metal and good new metal, now here's what we're trying to steer the conversation into. Go dig up some 40 Below Summer and have a sit down and listen to something, dark and,
heavy.
Yeah, really angry and heavy and morbid.
And some of these bands, say it or not, like, Machine Head, we established that they're not necessarily new metal, but like Breakdowns, thank you, Machine Head, for doing that. Seven Dust, thank you for that.
Yeah.
40 Below Summer, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because they did kind of help push them Breakdowns along, because they kind of were some of those bands that really started that. Saliva.
There's a rock band, no place in metal.
Alien Ant Farm.
I mean, they're good. They just dropped a new single, so I want to tread very lightly on how I speak to their name. That said, I only know them for their Michael Jackson cover.
Yeah, that's all I know too.
So the new single I just heard was good, but it felt more like modern rock and not like a new metal or a heavy metal. Yeah. But I'm gonna give them a chance, because I think that they're good musicians, and I want to like them outside of that Michael Jackson hit, which is fun.
Yeah,
but it's like
they
20.
Did it well.
It's 20 years on or more from having heard that song, and they got to have more to it than just that. So
yeah, I'm sure they do.
But probably not really new metal.
Yeah, Crazy Town.
You're my butterfly, baby. I mean, if that's new metal, fine, but I think they were just an example of a band that was capitalizing on the success of a sound of a genre and not really true to... And if they are true to their art, then that's fine, but I just remember thinking to myself, if that's new metal, then new metal is dead. That was the death of new metal for me.
And we have one last band, very controversial band, and that's just a list that Google's gave. I'm sure there's more that we're missing. I'm sure there's some, like 5.0. You remember that band?
I don't.
Oh, fuck. They were so awesome, dude. They had like a rapper, chick vocalist, but I think the bass player or the guitar player did like death metal vocals.
All right.
And they had like some really heavy choruses and stuff. I just remember hearing it from Brian, and it was super sweet. Vanilla Ice's album that was produced by Ross Robinson.
Yeah.
Y'all don't sleep on that shit, because that shit was fucking badass.
Hidden gems.
So, but that wasn't the one. So we got Trapped.
Okay. Yeah, Trapped. Man, good call. Are they a new metal band? They were right there on like between rock and metal and just rap rock. But I guess I'd lump them in with new metal, but they were definitely more the mainstream variety.
So as you can see, with Google's list of new metal bands, there's some new metal in there, there's some not, but every one of these bands is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Every one of these bands was kind of lumped into there because of being popular and having some elements.
Yeah.
So it's just the evolution of metal, and that's what we're here to talk about. So
yeah, and just like the black metal episode, and that's a good example to use. There's so many different subgenres of black metal, especially since its inception and as it's rolled out to modern times now. Same with new metal. Like, it kind of started as this funk rap, metal crossover thing, and then it just started to grow in many different avenues. So even within itself, the new metal genre has a lot of diversity, and I think it's fair game to appreciate it as a tried and true metalhead from before new metal was a thing, and to today's date where it's kind of had its time and it's come and gone. You can look back on it and say, well, you can say what you want about new metal, but you're never going to talk me out of enjoying Mudvayne or Slipknot's first album or some of that early work that happened in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Like, some of that stuff was good, really good, and needed and necessary to help carry metal to where we have it now today, where we can sit here and say, there's great deathcore, there's great new death metal, there's great new metal music that's blending more genres, and it's not new metal sounding, but it has the same heart where you're going to take a metal attitude and infuse it with some other genres that you like, that you want to incorporate into your songwriting. So new metal has its place. I appreciate it. I can definitely look back on some of it and hate and cringe as well. Like, there was some bad stuff that came out of this genre. A lot of people are going to dismiss it outright, and that's fine. Like what you like. I think we had to talk about it because more than anything, it represents a time where that's what metal was. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. There was always going to be underground stuff happening. There's always going to be like a whole world of underground music where people have 9-to-5 jobs. They're on a record label too, and they release albums. But in terms of musicians out there touring, carrying the flag, saying we're a metal band, you need that. You just need it in some form or fashion so that it doesn't go away and everything becomes underground and impossible to find. So I'm always going to stand up for some of the mainstream metal that you see out there in the world, the Static X's, the Disturbs. That's fine. They're not my favorite. Let's not mince words over it. Let's not get it confused.
Yeah.
Like, you guys will listen to enough. You'll know I'm listening to the deep, dark, underground belly of metal as well. But I got to give credit where credit is due. And when a band like Seven Dust helps carry the flag enough so that you can have a Veil of Noth even be discovered just by virtue of the fact that, metal can thrive in the world. If metal isn't popular enough, then you're not going to get some of the underground bands maybe. Because there's just going to be no interest. No studio's going to say, hey, come on in and record your album. It's fine if you only sell 1,000 copies. Look, you need to be able to be packaged and billed and presented out on the road. So you need mainstream metal. You need guys big to carry guys that are small. And that's the reason why I felt like it was kind of important to do an episode like this. So that you can go forward and mock this new metal genre all you want, but I think it's having a resurgence, and it did some things to kind of help metal today.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just kind of want to leave it at that. Like, new
that's
metal,
a very good way.
You can hate it if you want, but there's still some good things to it. And
I'm
care. Thankful.
I'll say that, closing words, there's some new metal that I really fuck with that I really like.
Yeah.
So
we had
what it is.
We had to do this episode.
Yeah.
So bless all for listening.
And keep it new metal.
It won't kill you.
Keep it metal.
Keep it metal.
Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.